They didn't think they weren't trying to get over on anybody. They were just trying to spread the word. So it's like, it's dangerous to put some of this stuff out there over the general airwaves. But this way, if people sign up, then they can go, oh, wow, I totally understand why this is a subscription service, or they can decide, it's not worth it. I don't want to do it. But I don't think they're gonna pick the latter. I think they're gonna pick the former.
Outstanding. We got a caller here, Splurge in Colorado. Good morning, Splurge.
Good morning. Hey, very cool to have Mr. Wells on this morning, and I really dig his taste in music, by the way. I noticed the bumper music on whenever he's hosting. But hey, when they have a super tanker that hauls crude oil across the ocean, it is a double-hulled ship, right?
Yep.
That means if it reaches the first hull, the second one will catch it. If you look at a bird's eye view of the Fukushima complex, whatever it is, would someone please tell me why they don't have an earthen dam that sticks out in the ocean? I mean, like, if you look at the bird's eye view, there's like a pier that goes this way and one that goes that way. Why don't they just connect them? I mean, if they're, instead of killing the entire ocean, I mean, do you understand what I'm saying?
Well, this is all I can tell you. There's a man named Dr. Minoru Kawamoto who was charged with rebuilding Japan's. He was involved in some of the atrocities that Japan committed against China, and he documented these things. When the war was over, they assigned him, for whatever reason, to orchestrate the reconstruction of the Japanese highway system and also their first refinery, and he hooked him up with an oil deal somewhere else. They also tasked him with going to the U.S. and connecting with a Dr. Alvin Weinberg at the Oak Ridge Labs in furtherance of developing nuclear power, which the Japanese government was very keen on getting. They saw us doing it, and they wanted that nuclear power. And if you go to caravantomidnight.com and click on news and click on red alerts, you'll see the letter that Dr. Kawamoto presented to his government, urging them to avoid nuclear power as they would the plague. And their reconditioning plant was never built. It's 13 years behind schedule now, and of course that's a known fault line area, and it's just a disaster. It was this is what you call the lust after money is the root of all evil. They should never have done this. Geographically, it was absolutely the poorest choice you could make, and we see the result of it. So. And these, of course, are American-type reactors, and our reactors are having problems. They were only meant to run 30 years, and they've gone way beyond their life expectancy. Hanford is a disaster. And out there in New Mexico, now they've got high levels of radioactive waste, 6,000 cubic meters of radioactive waste, which the radioactive waste is much more radioactive. That fuel is worse when it's spent than it was when it was new. So none of this was done correctly. From conception through execution, and I've asked the question many times: why is the world not rushing to Fukushima to do something about this disaster? And I think the short answer is there's nothing they can do about it. Nothing they can do about it. And if you get this little app, if you've got one of these iPhones, which by the way never fails to deliver when hacked, according to the NSA, you can get this little app called Safecast. And I've been watching this thing, and now you'll see that the entire island of Japan is blue, and you'll see the red and yellow dot, which the yellow is the highest end of the scale, right there at Fukushima Daiichi. And this wave has come across the ocean, and you see this blue grid all over the western United States. You'll see the pale plumes going up into Canada. Now they're going down into to the east side of Mexico, because the way these currents are carrying this, it not only hits the west coast, but then it goes north, and then it drops right down onto Maine and even the Carolinas. They report the sea stars are melting around Maine and North Carolina, I believe. So this is a problem, and this is a problem that is not going to get better. We are just now beginning to, and I don't like to go on the public airwaves and start popping off a bunch of stuff that I can't prove. I am not a nuclear physicist, but I've got eyes, and I read these reports of the symptoms that we are now seeing from this disaster. And I'm afraid to tell you this, but I mean, I regret to inform you that this is not going to improve. This is going to get worse. And
John, we're almost out of time here. Splurge, thank you for your call.
I just think it's revelations, you know. It really doesn't look good about the poisoning of the oceans. I think that's Revelation 16:3 talks about the poisoning of the oceans, and I don't know why anybody would make up something like that 2,000 years ago.
I don't know. John, we appreciate it. Your website is Caravan to Midnight. Thank you for being with us, sir.
Come and be with me one of these times. Thanks for having me on your program.
Will do. Thank you.
Dr. J. Marvin Herndon. Marvin, welcome back. How are you?
Hi, George. I'm very glad to be back.
What a time for you to be back. Oh my gosh.
I'm telling you, I just almost want to make a comment or two about Japan.
Please, yeah, let's do that. I wanted to start with you on that and talk about this radiation fallout and its potential, but go ahead.
Well, let me tell you what the one thing that concerns me. You probably recall that back in World War II, Japan had a program to launch balloons, incendiary balloons, that would drift over to the West Coast.
And a few of them made it.
And yes, and fortunately that was kept secret from Japan, and they thought the project was a failure. But that's the worrisome part. If there's a radiation release, it might make its way to the West Coast of the United States, which is where we are, by the way.
That's right. We're right here.
So that's disconcerting. And I also wanted to comment on what I think this is really telling us. There's something about nature that is there's a self-correcting effect in nature. For example, when a population of animals gets too large, something happens.
Yeah, they get culled out, don't they?
Yeah. And I think what this may be telling us is that nuclear reactors are too large.
I was going to say, Marvin, in your opinion, what is the worst-case scenario?
Well, the worst-case scenario is if the containment vessels were to rupture and the core were to run wild.
A complete meltdown?
Yes. Because then you have the problem of potentially an explosion and blowing out radioactive material.
So in this particular case, what happens, Marvin, when people get exposed to too much radiation?
Oh, that's just nothing but bad news. It's nothing but bad news. Depends on how much radiation. I mean, you can get a little bit of radiation and end up...
well, we get that from the sun every day, right?
Well, yes, but I mean a little more than a little bit, and end up feeling no particular ill effects until 5 or 10 years later you're coming down with leukemia.
And you have no idea why.
It's just all of a sudden that there's a larger population of people getting this. And it goes on to from that level up to really, really more severe.
Marvin, will they be honest with us, these organizations that are monitoring the radiation levels, will they be honest with us? Will our government be honest with us? And will they say, all right, people on the West Coast, you're going to get hit with 1,000 times more radiation than we think you should. You need to leave. Will they be honest, or they just say, well, they're not going to die for 5 or 10 years, so let's not say anything?
Well, that sounds like the way it would probably be.
The second part, they won't tell us.
Yeah, because what the government does, in the first place, it usually does it poorly, and in the second place, it usually obtains just the opposite effect. And one thing that has become increasingly aware, and the politicians readily admit it, is they don't tell the truth, and that's a serious problem. No, I think that if there were a major radiation leak, they would try to cover it up.
Oh, that's upsetting.